a way of life, a way of life. Islam is a way of life, a complete way. Islam solves all of its problems. Allah leaves no stone unturned. Perfect with no flaws at all are the laws of Allah. A way of life, a way of life, a way of life, a way of life. Islam is a way of life.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Brothers and sisters in Islam, welcome to a new episode wherein we will continue our discussion on the idea of the middle path nation or the balanced nation. And we spoke in the last episode about the fact that Islam stands on a middle path in comparison to other religions. And we promised the viewers that we'll be dealing with particularly Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, as much as we want the Ummah to be united. And that is something that we call for and we strive for. Yet we know, per the prophecies of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the Ummah shall divide into 73 sects, and the only one which is entitled to enter paradise immediately will be those who follow the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba, which are known as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. How do they stand out? What is so unique? What are the distinct qualities of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah that make them balanced in comparison to other denominations and groups?
I think one of the things that make Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah balanced is that Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they don't take a part of the deen and make it a whole. Because you'll see some people, they'll take the spiritual side of it only, and they make that as if that's the whole deen. And so you'll see them going astray as a result of that. Then you'll see other people, they'll take, like, for example, da'wah. Like, da'wah is everything, da'wah, and then they neglect the aqa'id and the fiqh issues and the others, and so they're not balanced in their focus on, because of their focus on one aspect only. And then you have another group of people, they might, everything is about the khilafah, about jihad, but then they neglect all the other aspects also, the spiritual aspect, the fiqh aspect. And so you'll see them as a result of the focus on just one part instead of taking Islam as a whole religion. The religion itself is balanced, and so you take the religion as a whole. You don't just take one and just focus, say that that is the whole of the religion.
So there's overemphasis.
Overemphasis and neglect of the other aspects of the deen, and that causes people to go extreme.
Very true. Some additional comment.
Well, the hadith you've mentioned of the 73 sects, I remember a brother coming up and saying, Akhi, does this mean that the followers of school of Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa, Malik and Ahmad are all in hell? And I said, why do you say such a thing? He says, because the hadith is obvious. Only one sect, Akhi. And I told him, the sect, what is meant by it is in terms of belief. These minor differences, whether you put your right hand over the left on the chest or under your navel, whether you don't put them all together, these are minor fiqh issues. What counts is what your belief is. So you might be Hanafi, following the Hanafi school of thought, but you have a different and deviant aqidah. So the most important thing is how you react. What is your conviction towards, for example, the beautiful names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal? Your belief in the Day of Judgment, in hell and fire, in the books, in the messengers, in the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam.
The punishment in the grave.
There are sects that say there is no punishment in the grave. There are sects that believe that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is next to God. Yani, just a bit and he would become a God. He knows the unseen, he controls the universe at the moment. He travels everywhere. He has like 1 million replicas, if you may, or clones that attend places where they make mawlid or do this or do that. And on the other side, you have extremists who disrespect the Prophet ﷺ, and they just say, Muhammad did that, without even offering the salutation to the Prophet ﷺ or saying that the Prophet or the Messenger of Allah Azza wa Jal. And they look down upon him as if he's just a man. He is a man, but he is the perfect man, whose status was elevated by Allah Azza wa Jal, praising him and giving him the message
قل
and
إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي. I'm a human like you. However, the thing of distinction is revelation comes to me.
so we have to be very careful when it comes to being balanced in our belief. Some of the people, like Sheikh Abdul said, go to extreme. They focus only on one aspect and neglect everything else. And they presume and they think that they are the saved sect or the saved branch of the deen. And you have to be holistic. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned this in the hadith to Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. And it's also narrated that Salman, may Allah be pleased with him, advised his brother Abu Darda with the same set of rules and advice to have this balance. And we may come to this later on, but I believe that you can feel the difference between those who are part of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and those who are not. You can feel it in their writings, in their teachings. You can see it in the way they behave with Allah Azza wa Jal. It is the balanced way.
I would like to give kind of like another way of explaining like Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. When a person is like following Quran and Sunnah and a part of the people of Sunnah, you'll find that they don't come to conclusions until they've referred to what Allah and His Messenger say. And then a person of bid'ah, right? A person who's committing bid'ah, usually they come to their conclusion and then they go and try to justify it, right? And it's a different thought process. And so you'll see when you were saying that you can see somebody who is, you know, when they're writing, you can tell that they're like Ahl Sunnah. I think you can tell when you see that they're writing not from, you know, our culture says this and this is where it says it in the Quran. But rather in their writing they'll say something to the effect of, let's go to the Quran and objectively see what is being taught. And then they extract their lessons, and then when they're taught, then you know what, maybe your understanding was incorrect, or maybe here's a hadith and you haven't got the full picture, then they're like, okay, now I'm okay, I can back down because I don't have any allegiance to my opinion because of culture or something.
Perhaps we can also address the issues of some examples in acts of worship, transactions. How do Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah stand out in this regard? What makes them different?
Actually, you know what, before we go there, I just wanted to mention as well that some people, when they think about Ahl Sunnah and they think that they're part of it, we were speaking in the last episode about being a middle path. And now here in this episode, I'm just worried that somebody's going to think that nobody's Ahl Sunnah in their entire village except this guy and his friend. And they make Islam so tight that it seems like I'm the only one following Sunnah. And Islam is a lot more expansive than that. And all these people are the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah didn't make Islam just for me and my friend and everybody else is going to hellfire. I just wanted to say that Islam is bigger in the understanding. But yeah, go ahead.
Islam is bigger than that. It is not so limited in a group of people. However, the hadith of the 73 sects, the 72 are not kafir. They might be admitted to hell, but not because they are kafir, because they have, it varies, whether it's they have an innovation that nullifies their religion or it doesn't. They have deviancy that takes them out of the fold of Islam or it doesn't. So it is important to say that Islam is not limited to XYZ of people, but at the same time, we have to be careful not to fall into this mixed salad, that as long as you say that you're a Muslim, even if you are believing that there is a messenger after the Prophet ﷺ, his name is XYZ, as we have sects claiming to be Muslim, and we know that this is something that nullifies Islam. I completely agree with Sheikh Muhammad that there are those among us who claim to be from Ahl Sunnah al Jama'ah, yet they make life impossible for everyone else. So you'll find them limiting those to be Ahl Sunnah al Jama'ah in followers of Sheikh so-and-so and followers of scholar so-and-so. And anyone else in accordance to their followership. If they don't follow, then they're not from Ahl Sunnah al Jama'ah, regardless of this belief. And this is extremely extreme. It has nothing to do with Ahl Sunnah al Jama'ah. But at the same token, I'd like to make it clear and definite, I believe that Sheikh Muhammad agrees with me, that not everyone who claims to be a Muslim is a Muslim. Not everyone who claims to be Ahl Sunnah al Jama'ah. Nowadays, we have among the 73 sects that the Prophet warned us ﷺ from, we have among them sects that do not connect with Islam. They're not part of Muslim, like a sect that comes and says that there is a messenger after the Prophet ﷺ, there is a prophet after the Prophet ﷺ. We know that this is something that nullifies Islam. If a sect comes and says that all the companions of the Prophet ﷺ are kafir, they are disbelievers, except Ali, Hassan, Al-Hussein, Abu Darda, Salman al-Farisi, and the rest are all kafir, definitely this nullifies their Islam, because they're not considered to be part of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They're not considered to be Muslims to begin with.
I just wanted to, comment just to be realistic as well. Now, when we speak about those who left the folds of Islam, they're not even included into the 73. They're not even included. These are excluded, because the hadith mentions the ummah. And so 1 out of 73 is a minority.
True.
Just so we can, it's expansive, yes. But that the number issue is a very sensitive one, because still on the ratio, you're talking about 1 out of 73. And the Prophet ﷺ said the ummah will divide into that many sects. Of course, the ulama explained that these people are entitled to enter Jahannam. Their affair is with Allah Azza wa Jal. The things that they do lead to Jahannam, and they will not remain there permanently.
Yeah, but
those
who said the 73 is divided equally? I think
True.
you're saying that
Yes.
that 73 it's all equal parts, not necessarily.
they're not, no, there's no.
This one division that is part of Ahl Sunnah wal
It
Jama'ah,
might be the majority.
it is.
They're
That's
the
why they
majority,
said
yeah.
Jama'ah.
They are the, they are the majority.
I wasn't speaking in terms of number.
Yes.
In comparison, proportionally speaking, they are a minority in comparison to 72. But not in number. In number, they could be the vast majority, and those who, the other sects could be, maybe one of them could have only a few followers. I wasn't insinuating otherwise. I'm just saying, so we can put, the viewers can hear the multiple views and put things in perspective.
Yes.
So there is then a serious matter that every Muslim should strive to understand what is Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and strive to be amongst them. We all have our shortcomings. What are some examples that make Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah distinguished among the other available sects in terms of worship, maybe transactions? Because I believe we were going to discuss that at any point.
You know what's interesting, and it's kind of like hitting me right now, the whole point of Ahl Sunnah, people of Sunnah, and then they say, well, everybody claims that oh, we're the people of Sunnah, but then the next section of that word is wal Jama'ah, and the majority, and the congregation, right? And that's a great way for people to understand, like if somebody's coming to you and whispering things and saying, you know what, we're really the people of Sunnah, and all these people are wrong, and hey, let's me and you go follow, now you know, there's something very dodgy going on, and somebody needs to be paying attention. You have to look at the big picture. Where are the majority? Where's the community going? And look for help in that.
We have to take a short break, but perhaps we can quote Ibn Mas'ud after the break, inshallah ta'ala. Don't go anywhere.
A way of life, a way of life. Ar-Rahman.
A servant is not afflicted with any punishment greater than having a stiff heart and being away from the Almighty, the Compassionate. Hearts are God's vessels on the earth. The most beloved ones to Him are the softest and the most purest. If hearts are nourished with God's remembrance and quenched with His meditation, it will witness great wonders and deep wisdom. Since our hearts are enlaced with layers of oblivion, we need to cleanse them to stand sound and pure before Allah. To know more, join us on Peace TV's new series on healing hearts, where we can join together the caravan of the sincere servants of Allah.
Let's try and purify our hearts from all destructive sins to taste true success in Healing Hearts. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. and repeat telecast at 5:30 a.m. India on Peace TV.
Most
countries of the world ban bullying. They fight it in their schools and universities. A lot of us are being bullied differently every single day. Some come up to us and say, do this, while others say, don't you dare. Some say this is halal, while others say, nope, this is haram. Are you confused? Do you feel lost? Join me in Umdat al-Ahkam, where, with the grace of Allah, we will learn the proper knowledge from the Quran and from the Sunnah, which would help stop this kind of bullying.
Join Assim Al Hakem in Umdatul Ahkam, next on Peace TV.
A way of life, a way of life.
And we are back. Sheikh Asim, you had something to say.
Sheikh Muhammad said is correct. The terminology of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the majority of Muslims have this belief. Now, when we say Ahl Sunnah Jama'ah, we do not refer to scholars. We're not referring to students of knowledge. So an old woman in the middle of Kazakhstan, in her village, is part of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, because if you ask her, where is Allah, she will tell you, He's in heaven, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And who is your prophet? She said, Muhammad alayhi salam. What is your book? It's the Quran. Do you believe in angels? Do you believe in the hereafter? Do you believe in this and that? And she says, yes. She is from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. However, we cannot just, make it a little bit loose. Jama'ah means the congregation, but Abdullah bin Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, referred the congregation to being even if you're the only one who's following the truth, which means that if a person is following the truth and he is one among a million, like in the case of Ibrahim, peace be upon him, he was an ummah. He was the only one. So this means that if people look at the majority, Allah Azza wa Jalla stated in the Quran, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. If you obey the majority of the people of earth, they will take you away astray from the path of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Allah says, وَمَا أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ وَلَوْ حَرَصْتَ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. The majority of the people will not believe. And Allah Azza wa Jalla also said, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. And the majority of the people would not believe in Allah, except also by associating others with Allah, as we see in some Muslim nations and communities where they pray and they fast, but they, for example, wear amulets, they believe in peers, they go to dargahs and to graves and etc.
Okay, so the statement of, because even when I was talking earlier about, follow the congregation, I knew the next statement that was going to come up would be that statement of the companion, that the jama'ah, the congregation, is the truth even if you're by yourself. See, the problem is how abused that statement becomes. Every person who wants to break away from the congregation is using this as an exit key. And he says, even though I'm the only one with this belief, everybody's going to hellfire. And there's a statement that says the jama'ah is even if you're by yourself. So they're always using that exit key. And if you really look at that person, no, they really are misguided. And they're misguiding themselves, fooling themselves with statements like this. And then you gave the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then you have some punk kid who says he's like Ibrahim alayhi salam and everybody's idol worshippers. And we've seen this happen. And if you look at community after community after community, that type of attitude, and we're looking at, last 10 years, last 20 years, you don't find too much good coming from that type of attitude. Instead, when somebody has an attitude of congregation, if you go to senior scholars, you'll see that they have the jama'ah type of attitude. You can see that khair can come. When the Muslims have a broader vision that Ahl Sunnah is more inclusive than some young-blooded people make it to be, and we can move this deen forward when we're more inclusive like that.
We're speaking about being balanced, so let's be balanced in this regard. You're right, and he's right. But the fact that some people may abuse a statement or use it in favor of their views does not nullify its validity and does not cancel out the truth behind it. So that we have to be a middle in a sense that you can't hijack Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and therefore declare everybody else to be outside of it.
I'll give you an example of where I would see that type of statement of the companion were applied. Let's suppose there was a village in some country that was ruled by communism for many decades. And the people, they lost their connection with the deen. They might say that they're Muslim by name, but a lot of things have happened, or maybe they even say that they're another religion. somebody comes and says, you know, this is the true Islam, and even if I'm by myself, I'm going to make sure, out of my love, that I will pass this message to everybody. He works for a year or two, and the whole village comes back to Islam. Or the Jama'ah is the truth, even if you're by yourself. I would say that applies in a case like this. But some guy hanging around in a metropolitan city with all Muslims, and he says he's the only one on the truth, I have a problem with that guy.
Not one individual, but let's be realistic. Some Muslim countries right now, some Muslim countries, without mentioning any names, what is prevalent amongst them, the common belief amongst them, is in total contradiction and disagreement with the Quran and the Sunnah. And it's not, there are minorities among them whom Allah has saved, but the majority are not. So if we were to say that, then that makes the majority to be correct and the minority to be conceited, egotistic people. That also creates a problem. So how do we tackle this issue so we can bring clarity?
I think from the word Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, it gives us the answer in the sense that the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they're not calling to themselves. And they're not calling to this group or this organization, but they're calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why when you'll see some people, they will claim that they are of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But when they call people to Islam, they're calling people to Islam according to this particular person only, and anyone who doesn't follow that particular person is off the, like they say, off the manhaj and so forth. But at the same time, when a person calling
so this is
others,
where that applies.
Yes.
This is where that applies, what you're saying.
You can also see what in the way that they bring forth their evidences and so forth. And so when they bring forth their evidences, they're always going back to the Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah, of course, the understanding of the previous generations. And so you'll see that in the way that they extract the deen, and sometimes you have some people who will call people to a certain person, and the other people are also following that, and so they are trying to push people from a hole or a pit, but they themselves fall into that same hole and pit, and they don't even realize it.
When I was in university studying Sharia, one of our teachers gave a beautiful explanation of how to understand different sects. And he said that a sect, right, when you're talking about 73 sects, another sect has different levels of people within it. They're not all like disbelievers. You have, so here's the sect, you'll find that there are people in that sect that are just part of that sect by name.
Mm-hmm.
They're just by name, they just born in that country or born in an area like that, and they don't even know what's going on, but they just, you know, follow along. Then you got people who believe some things in the sects and not others, and the things that they believe in cause them to be people of bid'ah, not necessarily disbelievers. So if you really look at, well, what do you believe in? It's like some weird thing that they believe in, some magical, whatever, but it doesn't take them out of Islam. They're like people of bid'ah. And then you have people that are extremely knowledgeable in this deviance, and they call to it, and they know they're tricking people, and you know they have a PhD in this deviance. And then you can say, okay, this person, they're a kafir, but even that kafir, you know, it's in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. It gives you another framework to understand, not to just be black and white with every single person.
In other words, you can't paint, you take one paintbrush and just put it on everybody.
So these are the sects, obviously, that are beyond the folds of Islam. You know, we're not speaking
and
about
it's
the
for
ones.
Anybody as well.
Even within Islam,
with
it could apply.
everything.
It could apply in the same sense.
It applies to everybody.
Some examples, or you have something else to add?
It's an example, and at the same time a clarification of my point of view. See, I find it difficult if I'm in a country or if I'm in a city where people have a deviant belief in Allah's beautiful names and attributes. And then I would say, Akhi, we're part of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. I have to stand out and I say, no, what you guys believe is different to what the Quran and Sunnah tells us. So if someone says, I believe that all attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal are not correct except 7, and everything else I will metaphorically play with words and say, yes, Allah Azza wa Jal does not have hands, Allah Azza wa Jal does not have a face, Allah Azza wa Jal does not this and that. So I start to cancel what is mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, and then I say that, yeah, but they pray, so they are Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. No. Now this doesn't mean I have to make them my number one enemy, but at the same time I have to make this distinction that Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah's a belief in regards to attributes. If someone comes and says, listen, I don't believe that there is punishment in the grave, Would I consider this to be a part of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah? I'll explain it to him, I'll show him the evidence from the Quran and from the Sunnah and the previous scholars. And if he still is adamant and insisting on that. So we have to make this clear, and Allah knows best.
I think part of our balance also when we're speaking to people or when we're trying to, maybe you might say, to see if a person of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, part of the methodology of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that when they see good in a person, they recognize it, and they don't just focus on that which is bad. There are some people who, they see a group, and even though they might have very good attributes in terms of akhlaq and things like that, the only thing they focus upon is this particular point in which, you know, it might be a deviancy, but at the same time you have to be balanced, especially when you're reminding people and calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't just look at the bad and just shun them totally. You have to mention also the good aspects that they have also.
Beautiful. You mentioned something about the Aqidah. The Aqidah is pretty much the nucleus, I believe, of the deen. And it's really the fine line. I mean, you will find that in other areas of the deen, there's some flexibility because they may be matters of ijtihad. And they are matters that are far from ijtihad. The time of the episode is not going to allow us to discuss that now. However, that's what we'll be dealing with, inshallah ta'ala, in the next episode. So, jazakumullahu khairan for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
A way of life, a way of life, a way of life, a way of life. Islam is a way of life, a complete way. Do you know what Islam says? It says that life's the